There's no cult upbringing, nothing that immediately screams future cult leader. And that's part of what makes this story so strange. She wasn't marked by tragedy. She was just an ordinary person, but the ideas she would later spread were not. I think I made them better.
Whoa.
I'm just going to say it, dude.
You made it better than me? Congratulations.
I think I made
Congratulations on mixing vodka and
The
mythology better to make
I made
it
a better Mythalaboo shot than you did.
Well,
I can tell you're jealous.
Well, hello, anyone that's ever walked into their house and went to their living room and saw their family that they haven't seen in 15 years, their significant other and all their friends, and they just all said, hey, we're here for you, and we want to chat.
We just want to have a talk.
Yeah. Welcome to another gloriously fantastic episode of Drunk and Demonic. My name, as always, is Jamie.
And my name's Peter.
And on this episode,
I'm pretty sure we forgot to do that last episode.
We're going to cover...
This episode, we're going to be covering superior universal alignment, a cult that is pretty, like, I'd say underground.
Not to live underground?
No, actually, they were not really underground. It's. I have not heard about this cult. Not saying that I'm like an expert in cults or true crime or anything like that, but I'm surprised this one didn't catch my attention earlier.
Because there hasn't been a Netflix thing on it.
Yes, that's probably more true than we can really give a whole lot of credit to.
Silly laughing dog. I like it.
All right, Jamie, what are we gonna drink tonight for this murderous cult out of Brazil?
Well, I think you had the name, right? What are we calling this?
I don't remember, but let's call it the Bloody Ascension.
The blood ascension.
Ooh.
The bloody ascension or the blood ascension?
Blood atonement ascension.
There we go. All right.
I don't know.
Well, can I have that said bottle right here?
Oh, this one.
Yes, please. So what I have here, Dewar's white label scotch.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah. Double cast matured. So it's a very mature scotch. Also known as probably the cheapest scotch you can get. Here we go. Thank you, sir.
When you order, like, just so everyone also
put my stuff right there.
Also is aware, no one has a
like right
well scotch
right up here.
Should we address that up top?
I guess I'll put it myself a little more. I felt bad for how much I just poured for you. No, you're good.
Okay. Just so everyone's aware, most places do not have a well scotch. When you ask what's your well scotch, they're going to tell you we don't have one because it's not unhappy.
Or they're going to give you Dewar's.
Yep.
From here, we got orange juice.
We're going to do... So just so we're like relative measurements here, obviously relative.
I'm never relative.
So we have about two ounces of Dewar's scotch.
I'd say I have 2 ounces of Dewar's in mine. I'd say Peter probably has 3. I'm going with... We have about an ounce.
About an ounce
of orange juice. I'd say they're pretty neck and neck on that.
Yep. We're going to throw in...
What's next?
About a half ounce per.
Oh, what are you doing if you want to tell the story, sir? Always stealing my thunder. Very good. You probably give yourself a little more.
I know that, like, this is heresy, but, like, I don't love citrus.
Everything is better when you cut it with citrus.
I know. Definitely.
Okay. From there.
Oh, we didn't mix it at all.
Yeah.
We were going
Give her a mix. Now it's not too late. Oh my God, this pussy ass bitch. We're gonna go here. 1. The only thing that sucks is I put way more booze in his. And
now we're even, dude.
And now we have to be even.
Yeah, but one of us is gonna get all the ice cubes and the other person's gonna get all the booze. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Swirl it, swirl it, swirl it. Swirl it, swirl it, swirl it. Swirl it, swirl it, swirl it.
No, it's not gonna work like that.
Ooh, that's pretty close, dude.
Yep.
That'll do, pig.
You fucking act like a...
All right.
It insults me how much you don't think I know how to pour something. I'm doing this for a while. Oh, no. Here we go. And now, yeah, actually, looking at it now.
I know. I didn't mean to do it.
Meow, meow. What are you pinching in there?
You can do a little splash of grenadine, or if it tickles your fancy, and you have it in your bar, some Luxardo liqueur. A cherry liqueur would be ideal in this situation.
What I'd say, to me, this is definitely a Scotchy sunrise.
Wow. Scotch sunrise.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. More of a mix.
They're a little mixed. I'm not as mixed as you are.
Give her more of a mix.
Yeah, I feel like, honestly, I feel like the grenadine actually would be better in here than the Luxardo because it does need a little bit more sweetness.
Oh, that's not bad.
Oh, that's good. All right.
Shit ain't bad, dude.
Yeah, it's gonna be like just a little twisty poo on like a blood and sand or something like that.
Blood or sander or
Bloody Sanders.
blood.
Okay. Wow, you really went there.
Thank you.
Without further ado,
are
you ready?
Yep. Are you ready?
I think I'm ready. Should we just get into it?
Let's fucking start.
All right. So, in this episode, we're going to be exploring one of the most disturbing cults you've probably never heard of. It was called Superior Universal Alignment, and it operated in Brazil during the late 20th century. This group didn't live in the woods or build bunkers. They lived right in the middle of normal towns. Some of them were doctors, some were police officers, and their beliefs turned truly horrifying. They believed that certain children, especially boys born after the year 1981,
oh, that's us,
were born without souls.
Oh, we're no soul boys.
No soul boys, dude.
No soul boys.
They thought that these kids were spiritually empty and were stopping the world from becoming a better place.
Aww.
Because of that belief, some people in the cult thought that these kids needed to be removed permanently.
And the plot.
The woman leading all of this was Valentina de Andrade. She would communicate with aliens, and those aliens told her that all of modern religion was fake, God wasn't real, and the only way to save humanity was to follow her teachings. She said kids without souls were holding humanity back and that we needed a spiritual cleanup to fix the world. At first, this might sound like something out of a shitty sci-fi movie, but this belief system didn't stay in books or small meetings. Started disappearing, children were murdered, and at the end of it all, somehow. So at first, this might sound like something out of a bad sci-fi movie, but this belief system didn't stay in books or small meetings. People started disappearing, children were murdered, and all of it was somehow tied to what the cult believed. This isn't just a story about strange ideas, it's a story about how those ideas turned into action, dangerous and violent action. It's about how people in power use their positions to protect their cult, and how communities fail to speak up until it was far too late. So, let's go back to the beginning. Okay. Who was Valentina Andrade, and what did she believe, and how did her wild ideas lead to something deadly?
You asking me? No idea. I have no idea.
I'm going to tell you how, dude.
Tell me.
All right. So Valentina,
yeah, look at them.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm
give them a look. They care about you.
She's got that. We'll have a sip. So Valentina Andrade was born 1926 in Argentina. Her early life is mostly a blank slate, no traumatic backstory. There's no cult upbringing, nothing that immediately screams future cult leader. And that's part of what makes this story so strange. She wasn't marked by tragedy. She was just an ordinary person, but the ideas she would later spread were not. As a young adult, Valentina moved to Brazil. There she connected with the growing scene of New Age metaphysical thinkers, not your basic astrology circles, though. We're talking groups that explored reincarnation, the mechanics of a soul, energy fields and vibrational healing, and direct contact with extraterrestrials. We're not talking about like your basic like pocket full of rocks kind of people.
No, she'd be knowing aliens.
Yep. We're seeing these people on Ancient Aliens.
Okay.
Yep. So in
Like this,
1970s
like hair like
Brazil,
this.
yeah, it's got to be way bigger than
I've been talking to aliens.
yeah,
Like, yeah, you have, buddy.
I can tell by your hair. In 1970s Brazil, this kind of thinking was gaining ground. Specifically, we're not quite yet to the satanic panic, but we are very early into the ages of what we would call like secular thought, where people are starting to differentiate from their parents. This is the children of the baby boomers are becoming adults at this point.
The Beastie Boys era. That's what you're saying.
No, earlier than that. They did want to party really hard. Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
that's Enter WK.
Yeah.
So it's the 1970.
Early 70s.
Okay, yeah. You're right.
So the kind of thinking that was taking place in Brazil at the time was this very strange ish, I guess, like more homeopathic based. You're talking about people that are into astrology and just like these, they're straying away from conventional religion, specifically Western religion, and delving into a little bit more obscure ideas.
So us like what's happening in the United States right now.
Correct.
How'd they go?
But like it's a cycle, right? You know,
Yeah.
we're getting back into it. In the 90s, people got really religious again because of the satanic panic.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, like 2000s came around and people were like, oh, I don't really know. And now I feel like we're back in like a pretty solid age of like secularism-ish. But
All right.
I don't know.
Fair
Anyways, so spiritual dissatisfaction and social unrest were pushing people to seek meaning in the margins. Valentina claimed that she had found it. By the end of the decade, she announced that she had made telepathic contact with alien beings. And we're not talking small little green men. These were high intelligences, enlightened cosmic caretakers that were looking after the earth. They had planted us on this earth and were wanting to take care of us.
And she's just talking to them via brainwave.
So, according to Valentina, they told her that the earth was off course. All of Western religion and modern religion was a lie, and she had been chosen to deliver a new message. In 1981, she self-published, of course, a book titled God, the Big Farce. In it, like the big fart.
I know exactly why you laughed.
The big farts.
Like, wait a second. That's funny.
In it, she claimed that God was a human invention, Jesus was just a man, and that religion is a system of control, not a source of truth. Now, to me and most of our secular audience, these ideas don't seem outlandish, but she did take it a step further. To her, the only way forward was spiritual realignment, not with any church, but with universal laws of the cosmos, as were revealed by her extraterrestrial guides, i.e., aliens. Now, she called her belief system superior universal alignment, or SUA, as we will be referring to it from now on, because I don't want to keep saying superior universal alignment because we're drinking.
Oh.
And I don't want to fuck it up. So
Hey,
I'm going to call it
I think because you're just like nervous.
SUA or SUA from now on.
Just say SUA. SUA.
SUA. Okay.
Yeah.
So she wasn't just offering a philosophy, she was offering truth. Truth that she said came straight from the stars. And then Valentina took her beliefs one step further. She began to teach that children born after 1981 were being born without auras. No aura, she said, meant no soul. And without a soul, a person could not evolve spiritually. In her mind, these kids were not just spiritually lost. They were spiritual errors, and they were holding the rest of humanity back.
Of course.
So, to her followers, this wasn't a metaphor. It was a warning. These children weren't just different, they were dangerous. Now, here is where I ask you a question.
Listen.
If you believed a whole group of kids had no soul and no spiritual future, what might your next move be? You have 4 choices. Try to help them, avoid them, start making plans to get rid of them, or blame video games.
I'm going with 1 or 3, depending on how
We've kind of
serious this is.
I've led into a little bit about what this case kind of looks like. The answer is 3, like you said, right?
There's
and the only reason. Oh yeah,
I should kill them, is what you're saying?
Yep.
Figure it out.
So she had no effort to help them because she didn't believe that they could be helped.
You asked me, not like.
Well, so I have a couple.
You weren't like what she decided. You were like, hey, what would you do?
Well, but like, okay, so I want you to like.
You're so confusing on these questions. It's okay.
In this story, all of the questions I'm going to ask you is if you're someone in this story that is living these out.
Okay.
I should have clarified that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
You should have, dude.
It's really nice, though, that you
very
went with
rude.
option 1, which is to help them.
Of course, I'm going to want to help them.
You didn't choose to avoid them completely, which is very nice.
No shit.
And you didn't blame video games, which is also really funny. You said you should either help them or get rid of them completely.
Well,
not knowing
depends the situation. My first go-to would be to help them, obviously, because I'm a very caring person.
And if they don't accept
everyone knows that about me.
Everyone knows.
Yes.
But if they don't accept it, you have to eliminate them, right?
Well, I'd figure out, like, I would start thinking, like, how. If they're just, like, really bad dudes and girls, I'd be like, all right, well, I tried to help them a whole bunch, so we have to now figure out how to leave this situation. Yeah, I get it.
So as the adults that we are, and especially like knowing how our parents talked about things, where they like think that like these kids are lost and what are we going to do with them? I think this is like, so the belief system that she was proposing didn't just stay in theory, it became action, because the people that followed her stopped seeing these young men as humans, right? So once they're not humans, or they're someone that needs to be gotten rid of, it's really easy to justify getting rid of them. Right?
I guess.
I mean, like, but like in theory, like,
yeah.
If you don't think that that person deserves to live, then it's really easy to escalate.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I would say.
That's what you've always said that, and I didn't really quite get it until now. So, all right. So Valentina didn't just write books. She built a movement. She formed small local groups called nuclei. Now, these weren't just your normal Sunday Bible study or your Sunday circle. They were intentional, insulated communities where followers would study her teachings, listen to her lectures. She made recordings of all of her lectures. They would practice spiritual preparation, which I didn't totally know what that meant. And they would cut ties from anyone who doubted SUA teachings.
Okay.
Even friends, family, and children of cult members. In fact, children of cult members were advised, like leaders of the nuclei would advise members to get rid, like either put their children into foster care. I don't have any record of them actually killing their own children, so we should make record of that. But quite often they were put up into adoption by their own parents, anyone that was involved with this cult, which is strange. Because I don't know why they didn't just kill them, but maybe it was like too close to home.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
you getting nervous?
This cutting ties with anyone who doubted or like who has doubts about your belief system is like classic cult behavior. And these groups were tight, devoted, and completely removed from any outside influence. They weren't book clubs, they were echo chambers, and they kept getting louder and louder within the groups. So, Jamie.
Yes.
Through your experience with researching about cults, what usually happens inside tight-knit belief groups with no outside input? We have A, they evolve into more open communities. B, they challenge their core ideas. C, they become more extreme. Or D, they get bored and disband.
C.
You were correct, dude. That's exactly what they do. So
obviously,
yeah, when you repeat the same idea enough times and no one pushes back, it stops sounding extreme. It starts sounding like truth. And in Altamira, one of these nuclei started acting on that truth. Because it was in Altamira, a small town in northern Brazil, that Valentina's ideas would cross a line. And the children that she said had no soul, They were the first to die.
Bye, because they were the first to die.
Nice, dude.
That's my omen to them.
They appreciate that.
I hope so. I wrote it for
I
them.
think many people are giving omens to these guys, so I think they appreciate it.
Yeah.
So by the early 1980s, Valentina's teachings had grown far beyond fringe ideology tucked away in self-published texts like most fledgling cults. Her ideas were taking root. Her followers were multiplying, and most critically, her organization was starting to look less like a loose collection of believers and more like a structured movement with a distinct hierarchy. The nuclei, those small local spiritual study groups, became the foundation. At first, they were casual, but gradually, they hardened to something more focused and more closed off from the outside world. They were starting with regular meetings, which turned into systematic study, intentional isolation from outside voices. Each nuclei functioned like a spiritual satellite of Valentina, a mini congregation orbiting around a belief system that positioned her as the cosmic messenger of good. They weren't remote compounds. They weren't operating on the fringes of civilization, though. They were gathering in homes, apartment buildings, and rented spaces in quiet neighborhoods. On the surface, they looked totally ordinary, but inside, they were studying something incredibly radical. They were internalizing Valentina's most dangerous messages. The earth was spiraling into spiritual decay. That traditional religion was a manipulative failure. The only salvation came through cosmic law and vibrational alignment. And most dangerously, the children that were born without auras, particularly after 1981, were soulless obstructions to human evolution.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not great. I think anytime you take a massive group of people and just say that they're in our way. We've seen this before in history. It's it doesn't usually go well for you. So
Tesla.
Yeah, dude, your heart's going out to them.
Heart's going out to them.
So this idea wasn't just appealing. I don't know. You've done some research into cults. This is what we do.
I've never heard anything about cults at all.
A lot of people in cults in normal circumstances are people that are on the fringes of society that are looking for something to give them meaning, that kind of thing. This is not the case with this. We have doctors, lawyers, teachers, business owners, local politicians, and even police officers, gentlemen,
horse owners.
All of these people own horses.
Video game.
Every single one of them.
Players.
Streamers.
Yep. I just wanted to be included.
YouTubers. Anyways, we're talking about people with power and people with influence. People with authority to act.
Influencers, that's a good one.
Yeah. We have a lot of influence here. So we have people with power. We have people with influence. We also, most importantly, have people with an authority to act or to protect others who acted in accordance with the cult's teaching. Jamie, if a belief system starts gaining followers in law enforcement and medicine, what's the most dangerous outcome? Okay.
Say it again.
So we have law enforcement, doctors, like police and doctors that are involved with this belief system. Mm-hmm. What's the most dangerous outcome? We have A, that their beliefs stay contained. B, they try not to draw attention to themselves. 3, or C, they gain immunity, protection, and power. Or D, they collapse under scrutiny.
C.
Boom, dude, you did it again. You got it right.
You didn't even wait for me to answer.
You did. You answered C.
Yeah, duh, dude.
So, when people are protected by all of their crazy fucking bullshit that they believe, and they start experimenting with testing these beliefs in the outside world, and all of their actions are protected against any prosecution or any type of judgment from the community. They feel pretty empowered. So that allows them to escalate even further. In Altamira, a town that would become central to this story, the local nucleus began compiling an actual list. Now, this list would contain the names of boys born after 1981 who were poor, vulnerable, and who would be overlooked if they went missing in the community.
Aw.
Now, it's important to mention that these may have started as theoretical discussions, but they ended up being a list of targets. This was found and proven in court. They were being watched, tracked, and evaluated. And within the nuclei, the language evolved. Concern turned into conviction. Conviction became justification, and justification became a moral duty in the cult. Nice, dude.
Thank you.
These followers no longer saw themselves as believers. They saw themselves as guardians of a truth of the cosmic source. Now, Jamie, when a group of people are stuck in an echo chamber of bad ideas, what is the most common outcome?
Call the Ghostbusters.
They debate the ideas.
Echo chamber, dude. Ghostbusters.
They wait for permission. They escalate to act on the ideas, or they go back to theory and strengthen those ideas.
I like no any of those. One more time. Say them again.
They debate the ideas. They wait for permission. They escalate to act on those ideas, or they go back to theory to strengthen those ideas.
We go with 4.
The last one?
Yeah.
They go back to theory?
3.
3. Okay. Yeah, you're right. They did.
It's always C.
Yep. So when harm feels holy, people don't hesitate. They escalate.
That's a nice rhyme.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the Altamira nucleus became the most radicalized and the most dangerous. What had started as a metaphysical philosophy had morphed into a full-blown doctrine of elimination. They weren't debating things anymore. They weren't planning, they were doing. They believed that they were purifying the species. They believed they were fulfilling the alien message. They believed that they were the chosen people. And so, one step at a time, first came the list, then came surveillance, finally came the disappearances. They weren't waiting for permission. They thought they were saving the world. And the first step, removing the children they believed didn't belong in it. Can I have another drink?
Sure.
You got all this shit over there, dude.
You know? Oh, that was barely a little. That one was a lot. You're right. Okay.
You ready to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. So, between 1989 and 1993, at least 19 different boys disappeared from area surrounding Altamira, a city in North Brazil in the state of Pará. Now, these children weren't from high-profile families or privileged backgrounds. Most came from poor working-class homes, kids who played outside, unsupervised, walked home, and didn't make headlines when they went missing. Many of them vanished during everyday moments. Some were walking home from school, running errands for their moms. They were kicking a soccer ball around with friends or hanging out in the neighborhoods that they thought were safe. 6 of those missing boys were eventually found. What investigators discovered when they recovered the bodies were deeply disturbing. A pattern of cruelty that felt deliberate, organized, and far too precise to be random. All of the bodies bore unmistakable signs of extended torture. In nearly every case, they had been mutilated. Most notably, their genitals had been removed. Some had been sewn shut post-mortem. Other injuries suggested they'd been tied up or restrained over long periods of time. We're talking weeks.
Why is it just like, why do adults just like remove kids' genitals? That's like a thing that always happens.
It's a symbol, dude.
I know, but like
They
literally,
but that's the thing, is that they give themselves like these like reasons for why they do things. Like, hey, we're like helping purify the species. But like, if you actually believed that, you just kill them.
well, there's been too
Like,
many
if-
times on just this show alone that we're like, oh yeah,
Dicks
that
are gone.
kid's dick is gone.
It's because it's a sign of power
Yeah.
and like demasculating or
it just sucks. I'm sorry, you're right.
anyways. No, but you're not wrong to like question why these things are happening. It's very like, we need to understand it, because
I guess I would never cut off a kid's dick, so maybe that's why I'm so mad about it.
Wow. I feel like that's like a really, really big thing to say.
I hope it's not.
I'm proud of you, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for admitting that to us, to everyone on the podcast that's listening. Haddonfield took a fall.
You know who didn't admit it? Peter.
Oh, you want me to do? Sorry, I guess I didn't admit it. I also don't want to do that. I didn't think I had to admit that. Thanks for bringing that up. So
shoe fits. I'm just saying.
What do you mean? Does the shoe if the shoe fits?
I don't know. Whatever that means. Just like if the shoe fits.
I don't even know what to say to that. You're saying that the shoe fits for me to be mutilating boys' genitals?
I'm just saying. All I want to say.
What are you saying?
I just said if the shoe fits.
Yeah, I get that, but what does that mean in this context?
Well, like,
are you intentionally blaming me?
Hypothetically,
yeah.
If someone was to cut off a little boy's wiener, and you didn't think it was far off, you'd be like, yeah,
"What do you mean
the shoe fits?"
I didn't think it was far off, like the dick was left near the body?
No, I just like if you didn't think that the whole notion wasn't far off.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely really fucked up.
Hypothetical.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, for sure. I don't understand what you're doing. Are you trying to like pigeonhole me into something?
No, I'm just saying. All I said was if the shoe fits.
I didn't realize that this episode was going to be you trying to pin like genital mutilation on me. So thank you for that.
I also didn't think you'd get this mad about like a little joke calling you a little kid dick cutter off, but like usually
you didn't think I would be mad about that.
Well, usually when people are very
let me guess, you're gonna call me sensitive here.
No, I'm gonna say
you're sensitive, dude.
When people are very upset about something they are accused of, usually means they're wrong. I'm just saying.
I don't have the words.
I'm just fucking with you. Go on.
I don't even have the words.
I'm just messing with you
to defend.
I'm not going to call you sensitive. I'm sorry.
You already have. So it's.
I also don't think that you cut off kids' dicks.
I appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying.
I am
to the rest of our audience. I really do appreciate.
For all 12 of you, I don't think Peter kicks. Or I don't think he cuts off dicks. However,
thanks, dude.
Go on.
Because if you did the podcast with me knowing that,
I'm also just as fucked up as you.
Yeah. So anyways, 6 of those missing boys were eventually found, and when investigators I read all this shit already.
What are you, dumb idiot or something?
I don't know where I'm at because you stopped me.
That's my job.
All right,
my job is to rattle you up.
Their bodies bore unmistakable signs of extended torture. In nearly every case, they had been mutilated. Most notably, their genitals had been removed. Some had been sewn shut post-mortem. Other injuries suggested they'd been tied up or restrained over long periods. The trauma wasn't chaotic, and it wasn't frenzied. It was controlled, and it was surgical. Jamie, why do you think the medical precision of the injuries stood out to investigators? A, it showed knowledge of human anatomy. B, it made identification harder. Or C, it looked more accidental.
I'm going to go with D.
With D?
Yeah.
I didn't have it.
Oh, damn it.
I'm going to stop asking you questions.
Yeah, why? Because what the so mad at you? It's funny.
I'm writing all of this.
One more time. I'm sorry. I'm just fucking with you.
Why do you think the medical precision of the injuries stood out to investigators? A, it showed knowledge of human anatomy. B, it made identification harder. Or C, it looked more accidental.
I'm going to go with C.
Okay, well, that's wrong.
Damn it. It's B then.
Nope. It's A. It's the only one you didn't guess. So what we're kind of getting to is like when the wound pattern follows that it's clean and it's not like aggressive, it's repeated. We have something that's not a crime of rage and not a like spur of the moment type of murder. It is cold, it's calculating, and it's done by someone who is, as we'll come to learn, like quite familiar with human anatomy. It's doctors that are doing this, right?
Yeah.
So despite the severity of the crimes, for years, these investigations went no more. And more accurately, it was intentionally stalled. Witness statements were ignored. Parents concerned were filed and then posed as errors in the records. Case files disappeared and autopsy results came back incomplete and vague. Why? Because some of the very people being implicated in these crimes were also the ones in charge of investigating them. We had police officers, morgue morticians, doctors, and community officials. People with ties to the local nucleus of the superior universal alignment were overseeing the response to the very crimes they may have helped carry out or cover up. They didn't view these missing boys as innocent victims. They saw them as Valentina described them, soulless, defective, disposable, obstacles to be eliminated. The wall of silence finally cracked, however, but no thanks to the system. It was broken by two survivors. Now, two boys escaped these abductions. They had been abducted, drugged, and brutalized, but they got out. And when they spoke to authorities, everything changed. They didn't describe shadowy cultists or masked strangers. They described locals in their community, men they knew by name, men they had seen in uniform, men that they had waved to on the streets. Jamie, what's the most terrifying part about recognizing their attackers? A, it meant that the attackers weren't hiding. B, it meant that it was personal. C, it meant that these were trusted members. Or D, all of the above.
All of the above, dude.
That's fucking right, dude. This wasn't just an evil act, it was betrayal. These boys were preyed upon by the people they were taught to trust. And what kind of trust? When it's shattered, that leaves a scar on a victim that will never heal. The survivors' stories triggered a storm. Reporters began asking hard questions. Investigative journalists started connecting threads. News outlets took notice. And when the cult's teachings came to light, especially their belief that children born without auras were obstacles to humanity, it all started to line up. This wasn't random and it wasn't a coincidence. This was a religious doctrine that put them into action. Everything matched. The age range, socioeconomic backgrounds, surgical mutilations, the idea that kids born after 1981, which all of our victims were spiritually empty, and the idea that these children were holding back the ascension of humanity. Suddenly, what sounded like a disturbing philosophy on paper was now a motive for murder. And the public, well, they were horrified, but they were asking new questions. How long had this been going on, and how deep did these connections run?
How long has this been going on?
How many people knew something and said nothing? Because if a cult could operate in plain sight like this was claimed, inside police departments, hospitals, churches, and government buildings, and convince otherwise reasonably people that the only way to save the world was to kill children, what else were these members willing to do? So, after the two survivors came forward and the media coverage exploded, these investigators had once been ignored became impossible to bury. The inner workings of superior universal alignment were no longer rumors. They were documented, televised, and in some case, dragged into court. And at the center of all of it weren't mysterious outsiders or shadowy figures. They were people who were involved, and they were distinctly familiar to the jury. They worked in police stations, hospitals, and courtrooms. They were teachers, judges, and businessmen. And yet, many of them were drawn to a belief system that didn't just flirt with extremism, it fully embraced, offering justification for spiritual violence and murder. Now, here's a breakdown of the key players in this horrifying network. We have Valentina de Andrade, who was mentioned at the beginning of the episode. She is the mother of all of these beliefs. The self-appointed leader, she authored texts, gave lectures, and founded the belief system that fueled all of these atrocities. But Valentina did keep her hands clean, at least legally. She denied any knowledge of the crimes, claimed no responsibility for the actions of her followers, and was ultimately never convicted. Her calm, almost smug demeanor in interviews became infamous. Now, Dr. Anicio Ferreira de Souza, a well-known doctor with a prestigious reputation, he was accused of personally carrying out the mutilations, given the precision involved. Witnesses placed him at several cult meetings and he denied all accusations and claimed that he was targeted by religious extremists. There was also another witness that claimed they saw him luring another child into an alleyway with a shirt already covered in blood. Cecile Brandau, was another doctor. He was indicted based on witness testimony and also alleged to have done castrations. Witnesses identified him also for being another one to escort children away from where they were. Specifically, there was this one boy who was a shoe shiner who he lured to help him get mangoes shortly before that boy disappeared. We have Hamilton Madeira Gomez. He was the heir to several farms and gas stations. According to investigators, it was him who attracted and raped the boys. Witnesses would have seen him with a bloodstained shirt upon the disappearance of one of the other victims. Now we have Jose Amadeus Gomez, who was the previously mentioned Hamilton's father. He was accused of masterminding all of the murders committed by the doctors. So he is kind of Valentina's like second command. According to police, he practiced the ritual sacrifice of these boys for financial gain. We have Carlos Alberto Santos Lima. He was a military policeman working as a security guard at a gas station belonging to Gomez. According to investigators, he himself confessed to being part of this criminal group. He was kind of the most damning testimony that they had because he did not deny it. He actually implicated a lot of these people. And then we have Elendor Ferreira Cardosa, who is another friend of the previously mentioned Carlos Lima, a military police officer who's accused of providing security and investigations for the crimes. Then we had numerous other judges, farmers, doctors, council members who were never actually charged, but were certainly implicated specifically by the testimony of Carlos Lima. So this is like a little bit of like a question to not be, it's not straightforward. It's more of a discussion question, but why do you think so many powerful people were drawn to this cult? Like, did it give them control? Was there a purpose that was given to them by this cult? Was there some cosmic justice or was it boredom?
Money.
Exactly. I think money and control were the biggest reasons. These people are obviously they're in positions of power to begin with. It's what they're longing for. And the fact that this cult gives them immediate hierarchy over anyone born after 1981, saying like all of these people are superior people or like inferior people to us. We need to dispose of them because they're not as good as us.
Yeah.
Anytime you marginalize or otherize people.
What's otherize? Is that a word?
Sure. I think so.
Okay.
And more like it's like a
I'll take it.
Sociological term. You know, you otherize someone, becomes something outside of your group.
Sounds good to me.
Anyways, so when these arrests were finally made, many thought that the nightmare would end in justice, but the legal system proved just as corrupted as the crimes it was meant to prosecute. Evidence disappeared mysteriously. Witnesses were intimidated and they vanished. Judges stepped down without explanation and prosecutors were shuffled from case to case as they were trying to go through this case. Despite the mounting pressure, Valentina de Andrade was acquitted. Not only did she walk free, she re-entered public life unapologetically. She continued writing, speaking, and holding events. In one televised interview, when asked if she felt any remorse, she replied, "Of course not. My teachings are for those capable of understanding. I cannot be held accountable for how ignorant misuse truth." What's more dangerous, Jamie? The people who carry out violence or the ones who inspire it?
Ones that inspire it, obviously.
I agree as well.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like the Manson murders. It's why Charlie Manson spent so much fucking time in jail because he fucking convinced everyone to go do it, whether or not he had a hand in it.
Stalin,
it's outside of the lines. So even today, some individuals tied to the crimes do remain untouched. Some changed their names. Others moved away quietly. Some still live in the same cities, wearing the same uniforms, holding the same power. Despite the trials and attention, no complete list of cult members have ever been released to the public. Independent investigators suggest that dozens of names, possibly more, were left off official records or suppressed or lost due to fear of corruption. And that's what makes this case that haunting. It wasn't just a cult hiding in the dark. It was a network hiding in plain sight. Behind badges and degrees, titles, and respectability. It didn't collapse because it was exposed. It survived because it blended in. And even now, in the same towns, the same halls of power, some of those faces may still be smiling at the public, untouched and unaccountable. Now, after the trials ended and headlines faded, one haunting question remained. How did a cult responsible for the murder of children continue to exist, and why wasn't more done to stop it? In the years that followed, there was no major reforms, no sweeping investigations into how law enforcement failed, no coordinated effort to find out and charge the rest of the cult members. Most alarming of all, there was never a national reckoning over how a belief system that labeled children as soulless was allowed to flourish in the first place. To the public, the case was over, but in Altamira, those wounds remained open. The families who lost children still lived in the same neighborhoods. They still shopped in the same markets. They still passed the same people in the street, people they believed had been involved. Some of these individuals were teachers, some were doctors, some were community leaders. A few were questioned, fewer were charged, and many were never named at all. This trauma didn't disappear, it was absorbed and it was passed down in quiet stories, embedded in everyday caution, etched into rhythm of daily life. Now, there was no state-sponsored support for the survivors, there was no therapists, no legal advocates, and no help. The boys who escaped and the families who buried their sons were left to carry the weight alone. Some tried to speak out, to tell the truth, and to demand justice, but most were met with silence, or worse, indifference. Others stayed silent from the start, afraid of being targeted, or simply worn down by the years of inaction. Meanwhile, Valentina de Andrade, the cult's founder and figurehead, continued to live openly and without shame. She gave interviews and she signed books and she answered questions about aliens and energy, but rarely, if ever, acknowledged the horror her teachings had inspired. She insisted she had been misunderstood. The violence had nothing to do with her, that the crimes were not hers to answer for. Her books remain in print. Her followers, fewer than before, but still present, never completely disappeared. Jamie, what's the biggest danger when justice is only half served? We have that people move on too fast, that wrong people are blamed, the real story gets buried, and D, it creates copycats.
Oh, C.
I think that there's a mixture between A and C.
Yep.
That people move on too fast and that the real story kind of gets looked over. Because once you have an answer that pops into the newspapers, people just latch onto it. And that's the end of the story. Yeah. That's why we try to, when we're doing our cases, do updates to keep people informed on what's developing, what's happening. Because if you get the initial scoop, it's not always the full story.
I agree.
So in 2000, more than 10 years after the crimes began, the Brazilian government publicly admitted that the investigation of the Altamira case had been flawed. But the admission meant little because there was no follow-up arrests, no reopened cases, and no compensation for victims' families. It was acknowledged, but without action, a press release instead of justice. Valentina died in 2009, never having faced any consequences for the ideas that she spread, the ones that helped justify the targeting and killing of children. She died a free woman, but the legacy of her influence did not die with her. Even today, residents of Altamira warn their children to not walk. They still speak of the case in whispers. In some homes, the names of the victims are still spoken at the dinner table. In others, they are spoken only in dreams. Many caught still believe the truth never fully came out. Those that not all people who involved were caught, and they have those names, and they still live among them. The cult known as Superior Universal Alignment may not function as it once did, but the ideas that fueled it haven't been erased. They linger in the quiet corners of the internet and the minds of those who still believe, in philosophies that disguise themselves as spiritual truth. This case isn't just a tragedy, it's a warning. It's a warning about what can happen when belief goes unchecked, when power protects itself, when systems that are meant to serve the public choose to protect the powerful instead. Because the most frightening part of this story isn't what just happened, it's how many people helped it happen, and how few will ever be felt accountable. So,
dramatic.
Yep. We made it to the end of the story about Superior Universal Alignment, dude. Any questions? What do you want to talk about?
No, I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So I know that I've mentioned this to you in the last couple of weeks, but why I latched onto this, I was looking into inspirations for the first season of True Detective.
Okay.
And this is at the top of the list, mostly because I was watching the first season. We finished it the other day.
Nice. How was it?
Dude, it was so good, dude. It was just as good as the first time I watched it.
Nice.
10 times, 11 times, 12 times through probably now. I learned something new every time.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I think that there's this stuff hides in the dark, but these ideas aren't. Like, these kinds of things happen more often than I think we'd like to acknowledge. And that's kind of why, like, I saw this and I was like, dude, I have to tell this story. There was an interview with the writer and director, Nick Pizzolatto. And he's like, yeah, there was this case in the late 80s and early 90s that I really was into. And that's how I got turned on to this. And it literally is like, if you've seen the first season, it's like this whole hierarchy of people hiding and religion and all of these things that are just protecting these perpetrators of horrendous crimes. So yeah, I don't know. This story was fucked up. I didn't go into the details on the cases, specifically like the murders, stuff like that, because these are all children, and half of the sources I went to redacted the names.
Yeah.
So I thought that it was maybe a little bit like the story itself is crazy. I wanted to cover that and maybe like give the victims like a break here. They were just children. They don't need to be dragged into this. So that's why we didn't go into the names of all of, the victims of this extremely chaotic. We didn't really, the belief system and how they like were communicating that belief system to all the people around them was insane. But it really was this case where there are people in power that protected and supported and did everything they could to keep this from coming to light. And I think that was like the biggest reason why I latched onto it. So anyways, yeah. What else we got, dude?
That's all I got, dude.
All right.
I'm cooked. I'm done.
Well,
I just been listening.
Yep.
I've been listening. With all that
There's a lot,
said,
though.
yeah, anything else?
What's your quote for the night, dude?
Your quote comes first,
All right.
obviously.
So, guys, thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tune in next week for another episode of Drunk and Demonic. Until next time, stay wicked, stay weird, stay wasted.
Thank you so much. Please never understand what I'm saying ever again.
What is that?
Space talk.